I'll talk a little bit about why trust. So just a show of hands, how many people know about the radio show, public radio show called Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me? That something that resonates with people. So for folks who know about this show, it's very informative and it's pretty entertaining. But one of the segments that I really like about it is every week they bring in somebody who has deep expertise, an author, an actor, somebody who is well known in his or her field, and they ask them questions that have nothing whatsoever to do with their area of expertise. It's pretty entertaining segment. And so the context here, of course, is the nice folks at Take have asked me to come in and talk about virtualized operations. And in this particular case, it's something I ought to know something about. I've worked in pretty much every type of sourcing, outsourcing, insourcing, heard jargon. And today we're going to try to carry on from what we heard even just this morning, talking about trends, the shifting sands of our industry. Things are changing. And where does the virtualized operations and virtualization fit into outsourcing in general? So I'm going to provide some comments on that. Now, last night, for folks who heard our speaker, he talked at the very end, in his brief talk about enchantment, about trustworthiness as being one of those pillars. Now, he and I did not coordinate this at all, but so I told him I'm here to talk about virtualized operations, and yet the title is trust. And you'll see why that is as we move forward. But I was really happy that he kind of teed up that topic for me last night. Just one of those benefits. He also mentioned last night, there was something he said that maybe all of us have heard at one time and others about the fact that statistics lie. So I thought I'd be remiss to say, if I left out the fact that my presentation has no slides whatsoever, so you'll notice that. But in some ways, that it's absolutely true, and it's also something of a lie. To the naked eye, that looks kind of like a slide. As we go through this, you'll see that there are no particular slides here. And if any folks are interested in sort of why I chose this method, also doesn't really subscribe to the format, the template, my bad. To sort of get that later. It's hard to get this tool to behave in that format. But for the way that I like to work, it's a really helpful tool. So for folks for whom that might be interesting, I'm happy to go into that. Well, let's see if this works. Oh yeah, look at that. So I have no particular agenda today. That is to say, I'm not getting to buy anything. But what I do want to focus on in this particular case is to, as I said, drill in a little bit on virtual operations. What does it mean? And I can distinguish outsourcing, but I'd say virtual operations is sort of the form of outsourcing. But really, for me, it's this second bullet point. Becoming conscious about why we would do virtual operations and to talk a little bit about, you can get them established, but maintaining them isn't necessarily the same thing as establishing them. So I'm hoping to get into some of these things a bit. And a case study or two for sure, one of which is particularly relevant to this crowd because it has to do with take solutions. So. And also, I should say, can folks hear me in the back? You may hear me clearing my throat more often than I normally would. There's residual congestion from the cough I've had for, it seems like forever at this point. I apologize for that. But if you're not hearing me, please sort of give me a signal and I'll get to that. So, my perspective is that of from the sponsor. Why would we bother to do virtual operations? Why would we consider it? What's in it for us? And so when you hear me talking about it, you'll hear the kinds of things that I'm thinking about when I'm leading. I led a biomedical operations group where we've got statistics, statistical programming, and data management, and we say, we're going to be looking at virtual operations. What does it mean from the sponsor? And in particular, what does it mean to my staff? That's going to be one of the points that I talk about. With a particular focus, when I think about outsourcing, I think, what are the kinds of things that are worth outsourcing? And to me, they tend to be, they can be complex or simple. They absolutely have to be specifiable, either in terms of the operations or the deliverables themselves. But First, a parable. And I hope you can hear this. See this second.
My name is Professor Gittleman, medieval counselor of Islam now. Humanity. Do you have a reason?
I do not know what a
Zimmer. That is what I have been saying, you idiot. Does your dog that?
Well,
I thought you said your dog is not bad.
that was not my dog.
Right. So, for me, this clip operates on a couple of different levels, but certainly in some ways it gets to the heart of trust. But I have to tell you this story. I used to travel for Pfizer a fair amount, and in those travels I spent some time in Germany, in particular, little town Karlsruhe, Germany. I think it's roughly an hour or so south of Frankfurt Airport. And whenever I could, I would stay. There's this very small place, and maybe a half a dozen rooms they had. And it was run by a couple. He was German and she was French. They had a Michelin-rated restaurant on the ground floor, and they said maybe a half. So I had German engineering and French food. It was sort of ideal. On one of these trips, I had to take a train over to Freiburg and back. And on the return trip, I got in a taxi at the Karlsruhe train station to get back to the hotel. 5-minute drive. And I don't speak German, and the driver didn't speak English, but I said I can name the place I'm going. And the place is Zum Ochsen. He looks at me and Zum Ochsen. What is? So I'm thinking Zum? So Zum Ochsen. He doesn't. He pulls up to another taxi driver. There it is. Zum Ochsen. So I wrote it down. I had Z-U-M and O-C-H-E-N. I think that's how it's spelled. Oh, Zum Ochsen. And I'm looking at this guy thinking, seriously? And so I can appreciate the frustration here. These things do happen. So, as I was thinking about this talk, and we all deal with a lot of jargon. I hear virtualization, virtual operations, and I wonder to myself when I'm talking to folks, are we actually using these words to mean the same thing? So when somebody talks to me about, if my management comes to me and says, what are your thoughts on virtual operations? I think, okay, I can talk about that, but are we actually speaking the same language? So one of the things I want to do today is provide a context for when I'm talking about virtual operations, kind of at least what I mean, and you may find these things useful. So, what does it mean? And when I thought about trying to answer this question, another video clip came to mind. This one may be more obscure.
Doing the right thing, it's important. What does it mean in business? We have no idea. We know what wrong is. Actually, no, we don't. Because we're a successful company, not some boring ethics professor. Meridian dynamics, right and wrong. It means something. We just don't know what.
This came from a very short-lived television show. I think it was a wonderful show, and I stole this. It fit too well. So, coming back to this question that I raised, what does it mean? I went on to the way, you can't read this. Don't worry about that. It doesn't matter. I want to see that there must be something out there on the web that'll sum it up nicely for me and provide a really nice foundation for talking about this. And there's a virtualoperations.net website saying, oh, this is perfect. Well, they do project management, but this is the top of their page.